All right, we are live again. This is Tim Blankenship with Patty Handy, financial coach. Today, we're going to be talking about navigating personal growth after divorce, maybe some tips for rediscovering passions, how to get back on track after a divorce or even a death, I suppose, Patty, getting things back in order and kind of a fresh start, if you will. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Tim. Thanks for having me. And how are you guys doing over there? All
We are
good in the world?
doing great. Yeah, for us, as the kids slowly get back into school in the various counties in California, we start picking up from a divorce
Mm,
perspective as far as level of busyness. I think last week, elementary and grade school went back to school, and then later in the week, I think high school, and I think now some of the other counties in LA County, not other, that doesn't make sense. Some of the other cities in LA County, like Glendale and so forth, are and city of LA are getting back into school this week, and as well as other counties in California. So as that we get through towards the end of this month, I think everyone will be back for the most part, and that is kind of a divorce season, if you will. Picks up right when
mm.
the kids get back into school for the most part.
So everyone's on vacation during the summer. When they get back to reality,
Yep,
they is that typical for every year?
every year.
Really
Yeah,
interesting.
every year there's definitely a pattern, and fortunately, I've been doing this a long time, or long enough to see the pattern and have enough consistent business that we can definitely see um, rises and falls based on time frame. And I think it's all directly around the kids
Mm,
and school. Used to be they'd say February, March was or January was divorce season. January's a little slow. It's kind of coming off the heels of the holidays and all that, but
hmm.
definitely February through the kids getting out in summer, and then 2 to 3 months ish. The kids are out of school, and now it seems like summer's so short for them. They're already back in school. So we'll pick up now August through probably I'd say Thanksgiving, and then Thanksgiving to Christmas. It kind of obviously it slows down a bit just because of the holidays.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be a bad time to start proceedings when you're heading into the holidays.
Yeah,
But
that's no fun.
yeah,
I had
yeah.
people today where we just started their divorce, and most people want to know what their actual divorce date will be, which we can predict because we
Mm.
know the filing date, we know the service date, we know the plus the 6 months plus a day from the date of service. So we're just running into February 14th. So I guess people didn't want to have Valentine's Day as their official divorce date.
Oh dear.
And some
Okay.
people are sentimental that way.
That's cute. I mean,
Yeah.
that's yeah, that's nice.
It didn't even occur to me when I put the date in there. They said, "Oh, can we change? Is there any way of, if modifying the final divorce date to some date other than Valentine's Day?" And
Yeah,
with what we do, we can, we have that ability because it's all based off the date of service, as far as when that 6 month clock starts.
it's nice that you can control that
Yeah.
narrative and control that period of time.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I guess you know best with regards to the scheduling of all that and just the waves of people, post summer and staying off of holidays and all that the patterns there.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that works.
Yeah. Pat, I had a question for you. When are you seeing your clients come to you? Because we're talking about kind of patterns, and that may or may not apply to you, but are you seeing a trend of when people reach out to you? Let's say they got divorced or getting divorced. Is there a window you're seeing that where, hey, I was divorced a year ago or 5 years ago or 5 weeks ago? Are you seeing a pattern when people have that need, desire, or reach for assistance from you?
The so far I've seen more people who are either contemplating divorce
Hmm.
or um, going through it
Yeah.
or shortly after divorce. I haven't had a lot of people reach out to me that were divorced 5 years ago,
Okay.
and so it's
So there
usually
is a window a
there
bit.
there is a window so far that I've seen, and it's usually this like ultra pain period where there's like, okay, there's some urgency to figure things out because I know I'm going to either ask for a divorce, I'm going through a divorce, and they've got to make some decisions and they've got to figure out their next steps when it comes to money and life. And so it's in that window where they are, there's that urgency and that need to really get things in order.
The folks that are going through a divorce, are they are they nasty divorces? Are they contested? Are they going to trial? Like what's
I've seen both. I've seen it
both?
all.
Doesn't
Yeah.
have to be that necessarily.
No, yeah, I've seen some ugly ones. I've seen some very, peaceful ones. I would probably say I've seen more that are not friendly, unfortunately. So you're fortunate in that you see more of the friendly ones.
100% of them. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. But it's definitely it's a mixed bag. And even when I was in the mortgage business and as a financial advisor, it was just a mixed bag.
So those that are going through maybe contested cases or unfriendly divorce type cases, of which we don't handle here, what? So they're dealing with all of that with
Mhm.
the divorce, and I'm assuming they have attorneys and they're going to court and all of that's involved with that. And then on the side, they're also trying to handle their personal life moving forward. It seems like quite a bit to deal with.
Yeah, I can't help them from a financial perspective as far as like advice because we don't know what's going on in their world until things get settled.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of it is, I mean, they need that emotional support. They need the, um, I guess you can call it accountability. There is the need for direction. They want certainty and some sense of security and stability in their life. And they're in the middle of this flux and they're in the middle of this chaos and trauma. And it's sort of like a grounding and helping them just emotionally kind of process it. Having somebody alongside of you during that time when things are so challenging is a huge help because there are so many things going on emotionally, financially, mentally, the kids, the trauma, the grieving of the loss. I mean, there's so many emotions, and to just try to deal with that on your own is a challenge. So
Yeah, I guess I didn't know as much as we've talked about your coaching program. I didn't realize that that was part of the coaching as far as kind of helping them emotionally throughout the divorce process.
Oh, 100%.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and having gone through a divorce myself, understand that journey and I understand what that looks like. Um, but yes, I mean, I call myself as a financial coach. I'm part financial strategist and part life coach, and that is truly the mix of both. And a lot of that does incorporate all of that, life coaching.
Mhm.
It is that like, okay, let's pick up the pieces and what are we going to do to move forward. And I think I remember saying this on one of the past, I think it was probably a podcast or two ago. I forget which
Yeah.
one it was, but I said that a therapist is like an archaeologist and a life coach is like an architect. So we are now designing their new life
Hmm.
and working towards building that new dream and building, the possibilities of the future, which helps you get out of that dark place. Because in the middle of things, in the middle of that chaos of, the proceedings, it's a dark place. It's a lot of sadness.
Yeah. So in this podcast, we're talking about personal growth after divorce. I guess that can start on the heels of
Mhm.
divorce or even in the midst of it or on the tail end of it, if you will. We're also talking about tips for rediscovering passions. Can you tell me what the mindset of like maybe clients you're coaching are when they're about to finalize a divorce, maybe they're at the point where they're signing off on the final settlement agreement and they're about to take their next step, which would be what this conversation is about. Where's the mindset? Like what are the pieces that you're putting together for them?
Oh, it's a lot of different pieces. Definitely. There's the pieces of the emotions of you're still grieving, the loss of that dream, the loss of that relationship. Even if you were the one that instigated the divorce, you still are, you've lost your partner of however many years. So one of the things I always say is, you need to allow yourself to grieve. You need to absolutely feel those feelings. You just can't, shove them down and just move on with life and move fast. You've got to feel those feelings. I think the more that we do feel those feelings and we lean into them, the better we can process them and become, get to the other side better versus those that are just trying to get back on life and get back into the dating game or back into, whatever, like nothing happened. And that just will backfire on you in a very big way. Um, but to answer your question, I mean, you're dealing with the emotional side, you're dealing with, potentially the chaos of finances, trying to get out of debt, trying to figure out how all that's going to work. If the wife wasn't working, does she have to go back to work? Just navigating all of those pieces. If there's young kids, dealing with that and splitting the time with kids. If you're dealing with older parents, I mean, everyone's situation is different. But you definitely have just a combination of things that are going on. But it's a lot of self-help. I've talked to a lot of ladies who just got lost in their marriage, and they were now rediscovering themselves and trying to figure out who they were again and what they enjoyed. I was talking to a client recently who I said, what do you do for joy? What brings you joy? And it was, she started to share, and it was like you could almost tell the energy and the way she was talking. It was just lifted. Like she had not thought about things that brought her joy in so long, because she was so, weighted down. So I think it's important to, address all those pieces. I know it's a long answer to your question, but there's so many pieces of that puzzle.
So does that kind of start with like an assessment to see where they're at when people kind of do? I know you do like a discovery call initially with folks. Is that where you're trying to find out where they're at, and so you can kind of come up with a starting point?
Yeah, the discovery call is really just to get to know their situation, get to know them a little bit, hear about where they're at with things and in life, what they're looking for in terms of needs, and determine if we're a good fit as far as working together. And that's whether it's one-on-one coaching or whether that's part of my Minding Her Money group coaching. There's different pieces where they can benefit. So the discovery call, we don't get into the meat and potato of coaching. We just really learn about each other. And then our first meeting is where we go a little bit deeper. And with one-on-one coaching, obviously it's very personal, and it's their agenda and what's going on in their world and what's on their mind. And one of the first questions we get to is, what do you really want in life after this is done? What do you envision your life like once this is all behind you? And the idea of thinking about their own life, sometimes can be frightening because they're alone, and sometimes can be like, oh my gosh, what freedom. It just, it just depends.
Yeah, this is your specialty, not mine, Patti. And I did a little bit of research just ahead of time, and I'm sure you have maybe a path you follow for your coaching, or that you walk your clients down. What I'd come up with is it seems kind of a bit of a pattern, and let me know if this is similar to what you offer or even makes sense. Number one, allow yourself to grieve. Number two, prioritize self-care and self-compassion. I know we've talked about self-care quite a bit in prior podcasts. Number three, reflect and rediscover. We're talking about rediscovering your passions in this podcast. Set new goals. That's part of that as well. Then expand your support network. How does that does that kind of path or programming fit into as far as what you do with your coaching?
Yeah, we do a lot of that for sure. All of those things you mentioned is foundational in moving forward. And there's a lot more as well, but it is really important to start at the place of where they're at right now. And that's mentally and emotionally, physically, financially, and get into that place of feeling better. So if we're dealing with our emotional state, the self-care, self-compassion, that's huge. We need to absolutely take care of ourselves. I know, as you mentioned, we did discuss that a lot. And because we have got lost in our marriage and we're dealing with taking care of everyone else, we don't necessarily always take care of ourselves first. So for the first time, perhaps in many, many years, maybe decades, we are focused on ourselves only, which can be like, oh, wow, this is kind of, nice. So that is really important. So that can be, anything from starting a new exercise routine or starting a new class, finding a new hobby, taking up meditation, taking up, Pilates, taking whatever it is that you do. That takes care of you emotionally, and it's all tied. The emotions is tied to the physical. When we exercise and we feel better, so our emotions are better. Mentally we become more alert, and so it all sort of blends with each other. But taking care of ourselves in all those areas are going to be, the fundamental foundation to start, because you can't take care of your money when you are emotionally a mess.
Yeah, all those dynamics kind of fall in place, right? If one's out, it'll drag down the others.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's as a human being, whether you're going through a divorce or not, as a human being, if we are off in our health because we haven't exercised, or we're eating poorly, or we're not getting sleep, or we're stressed out and we're anxious, or we're dealing with work issues, or whatever it is happening in our world, it becomes this, we're out of balance, we're out of kilter, right? So getting back on track with exercising and eating well, I mean, those are two great places to start, and that does ripple into our mental health and our emotional health. And that, again, that's for everybody. That's for men, women, and that's across the board. Especially these days. I mean, everybody, we're all stretched, right? Coming out of COVID and coming out of all of our challenges that we've had. I feel like everybody has a story. Everybody has something going on in their life, and we just need to really, pull back a little bit and focus on taking care of ourselves.
Where would you start someone off, Patty, if you were coaching them? If just everything's out, they're not eating right, they're not exercising, their money's out of whack. They just came through a divorce or a loss of a spouse, and everything's in a like kind of a whirlwind. How do you stop the papers from shuffling around and kind of settle things down and get someone to focus? And how would you recommend someone start, or where would they start?
Yeah. So I try not to present everything in one time. It's overwhelming, right? No one's going to be able to make all these changes in all these areas of their life without feeling overwhelmed in a very short period of time. So we prioritize what's most important. If there's things of urgency that need to be addressed from a financial perspective, we'll look at that just to make sure that nothing is urgent. Typically, nothing is terribly urgent when it comes to the finances. But if physically they are just, the doctor gave them, this, you need to get, eating better, or you're going to risk getting diabetes, or whatever. Well, like, okay, let's focus on what we can do right now to get ourselves better. Now, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a person that's an expert in that field, but I would refer them to a nutritionist. We'll have some kind of conversation about, okay, well, what can we do right now? What's in your control, and have some boundaries or goals, that if you will. And then I might refer them to, like I said, a nutritionist or somebody that can help them. If it's more of, I haven't exercised in a year and I really want to, get into something, we start there. So it really is what's going on in their world specifically, and where they want to start. It has to come from them. It can't come from me. It can't come from me saying, oh, you need to eat better. No, that's not the way it works. They have to say, you know what, I need to get back on track with my eating. I need to get back on track with my exercise. And it's that desire stems from them. And then I help them I'll keep them accountable. I'll keep them on track. And then we navigate to the next piece of their life.
As with all coaching, whether it be, exercise coach or health coach or diet coach or anything, that is the main purpose, is to keep people on track. Because of course, with anything, people can do this on their own
Right.
technically, but to have a support group, a network, have a coach in this area after something so devastating like this, it is really about keeping on track. Because as we can eat well for a time and then go off the diet, we can not drink for a time and then and
Yeah.
so it's good to have that support network there. And that's why probably I would imagine, having coaching is so powerful.
Coaching is extremely powerful. And I think if you do it, if you've had a coach before and you've realized the effect, you can speak from experience. If you haven't had a coach before, you don't really realize what you're missing. But it's like, it's similar to a personal trainer. I can go to the gym. I know how to use the equipment. I can, get there. But if I had a personal trainer that wasn't allowing me to rest for, 2 minutes before my, or between my sets, and kept me going and kept me pushing on the weights and kept me just, focused, and then made sure I was there whatever number of days a week that I, needed to be there, I'm going to see my body change a lot faster than if I just did it myself. Right. And then that motivation, proves to me that, oh, wow, having a trainer is a fantastic thing. I'm going to continue with this. And then when you stop using a trainer, you slip back into, oh, I can sleep in this morning, I'll go tomorrow, those kind of habits. Same thing with working with a coach, whether it's a life coach or a financial coach or whatever. Having that accountability is super, super powerful.
So, Patty, there's a lot of bigger issues that people are dealing with that can cover so many smaller subcategories of items. What would you say, just in a general sense, in your coaching and people you've been working with, and just people you know in general? What are maybe one, two, or even three different main things that like kind of rise to the surface that people say this is what I need help with most immediately?
Finances is definitely one of the top three, because typically when a woman comes to me, there's a situation where the husband took care of the money, and so they didn't understand investing. They didn't really have a handle on, how to manage the money, and so the financial piece was overwhelming and fearful for them. So that was definitely one of the top three. It's also feeling just so beaten down, feeling so exhausted, and feeling so depleted that they just, their cup was completely empty, dry. I mean, just beat up. And so, not literally. I'm just talking like just from an emotional place. They were just completely exhausted. So it was just slowly getting their cup refilled. And that's about, again, when we talked about at the beginning, which is that self-care, finding things that bring us joy, finding things that's fun, bringing that back into our lives and bringing that balance back in. So, that piece. And then the other, if I had to say a third one, it is the physical health. A lot of times, because there's so much stress and anxiety for a period of time coming up to or leading up to the divorce, they feel horrible physically. And so they need to get healthier. Maybe they put on some weight. Maybe they just, turn to the fast food because it was easy. Um, it's just their body is not functioning. They're not sleeping well, so they don't feel well. It's just this vicious cycle of, I feel like crap. I can't sleep. I feel like crap. I can't, and around we go. So those three are really the top that seem to be the, you know, most common issues.
So you mentioned finances first, and I get and not that any one thing would be more greater than the other. Just depends on what they identify as wanting
Yeah.
uh, assistance with most immediately, right? And it'll probably all trickle down from there. But yeah, finances can definitely be a major issue coming off of a divorce or loss of a spouse,
Hmm.
um, especially where one spouse isn't working or wasn't working during the marriage. We handle only amicable cases, so most of our clients are working it out in such a way that it makes sense for them for both parties, especially when there's kids involved. But where there is no income, I mean, the financial impact it affects both pretty negatively because, as you know, you go from one income or two incomes family to one set of household expenses, and then post divorce, you have whatever the money was there each month now having to support two households. And even though spouse support's there to kind of continue on with how the marriage was financially, there's just no way that money goes as far when two households are being supported.
Most definitely. Not only you have half, the income, or no income if you were unemployed, you have half the assets. So now you're starting over again in terms of getting caught up for retirement. And it's going to depend on how old you are. If you're divorcing in your 40s, it's a very different situation. If you're divorcing in your 60s and 70s, which, as we had talked about in our Great Divorce podcast, is becoming more and more common. So yeah, if suddenly your retirement assets are in half and you've got to get caught up, you've got to work longer perhaps, or you've got to find a job perhaps. It just depends. Every situation is different. But yeah, from a financial perspective, I mean, for this, I'll talk about my case. When I went through my divorce, at the time I wasn't working. I was at home being a mom, and I left my corporate banking world. I wanted to stay at home with my son, and he was very young. I know I've mentioned this before. He was 18 months old, and I had to find something to do. I needed to find an income. So I had a lot of money going out and nothing coming in. And it was, a kind of a scary and messy situation. So yeah, I mean, it's stress is off the charts when it comes to that. So yeah, people are just looking at ways to bring in additional income. And fortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, today with the internet and the ability to make money online, and the opportunities that are out there, there's so many things that you can do, as a freelancer or whatever, that we all have skills and talents that you can find a way to generate some money in some way, in some fashion. So there's a lot more opportunity and possibilities for those that are, finding themselves unemployed to generate some kind of income. But still, it's a very scary place. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of sleepless nights about, oh my gosh, am I going to have enough money? Am I going to run out of money? What do I do? I mean, and that's where a financial coach can kind of help with regards to looking at their situation, looking at their overall financial picture, and looking at not only the assets but the liabilities, and looking at the cash flow coming in and out. Where can we plug a hole and stop the cash from slipping through our fingers? And again, that accountability is part of it. So that's definitely where a financial coach can come and just put the brakes on and help them to regroup and look at the reality of the situation, and then make a plan to get to whatever goal that they want.
Yeah. So we're talking about tips for rediscovering passions, and we're talking about finances specifically right now. I think we could kind of dovetail into finding employment. Let's say we have a spouse that wasn't working, or maybe working just part time. Maybe they're the stay at home parent or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you would make recommendations, if appropriate, that they become reemployed, just so they're not in that precarious position of, maybe they're just relying on their spouse's income or support, for instance. But in talking about passions, as far as your coaching program, how would you recommend someone tie in their passion with maybe now getting a job, or not, working more than part-time, or stepping into employment? Would you help someone do that, as far as identifying what that passion might be, so they can use that for employment? And we're kind of tying that into this financial discussion we're having.
Yeah, in a perfect world, someone takes their passions, which is a combination of their skills and talents and their desires and the impact they want to make in the world, and find a job that feeds all that. That's where they're going to flourish. That's where they're going to be best, and will also be happiest. And it might be that they want to be an entrepreneur and have their own business, but right now that isn't in the cards. They've got to find a job to, get the cash flow and get the benefits perhaps, and get whatever else has to happen, so that there's some security and some stability. And even with the job, they can still work that part-time thing if they want a side hustle. A lot of people are doing that. And then over time, things can shift. But for right now, we look at their current situation and determine, okay, what has to happen to, stop the bleeding, to stop this situation and get ourselves on track. And yes, so it's a combination of, okay, let's look at a job. Let's talk about your skills, your talents. What is it that you want to do? Perhaps it's a job that you used to do, now you want to go back to. Who do you know that can help you open the doors to these companies or opportunities that are out there? Our network of friends and family and people that we know is a great place to start. I don't love applying online. People can do hundreds of resumes, never get even seen. So it's always about, okay, who do you know in that world that you want to go into, and can you call them and reach out? And people are always wanting to help. Everyone wants to help each other. So that's kind of where we start. And then if maybe they have a job already, but they need some additional income because they've got some credit card debt, or they've got kids in school, or whatever the case is. Again, it's very individual. And then we talk about, okay, let's talk about doing a little side hustle. What can you do to earn a few $100 a month on the side to pay for a school or whatever it is that they need to do? So it's a lot of creativity. It's a lot of conversation. It's a lot of digging deep, unpacking their search, their life, and peeling the onion layers back and finding out what it is that they need help with. And again, it's their agenda. It's not me coming in and saying, okay, you need to do this, 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 and this. No, coaching is about asking the right questions and helping them, come up with the answers. Because at the end of the day, we all have our answers. We all know the right answer.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100% on, one of the topics we had was here, expand your support network. And that would include, people, getting to know more people, letting them know your position, knowing, letting them know you're looking for work. I agree with you that I think many, if not definitely not all, but many jobs are found through associations, through being referred,
Hmm.
openings in positions or jobs that aren't posted. I read there was something on the news the other day that said I think the number was 20% of job postings are for positions that companies never plan on filling, and that they are just there for to look like the company has growth, showing open job positions,
Wow.
positions on, yeah, they're just there to give. You go to their site and they say, here's our openings. And there was someone and they talked to several people that applied for open jobs. They even showed the open jobs on the employer websites, and they said, I've applied for this 4 or 5 times. I've never got a call back, and the position continues to show open. And then when they interviewed some of the employers, what came out of it was, these were just trying to show that we have growth, that we're a bigger company and all that. So you're applying for jobs 20% of the time in this case that are non-existent.
That's rough.
Right.
That makes it really tough for everybody. I mean, kids coming out of college looking for work, people in situations like this where they're coming out of a divorce, they need to find work. I mean, that's just there should be something against that. That's not
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not right. But I think if I had to look back on the course of my career, even come day one out of my college, um, every job, I think I had one job, and this was in my 20s, that I found, and I think it was in a newspaper. That's how old I was.
I remember those days.
Or yeah. Everything else was found through a referral of somebody that I knew, and they introduced me to a person, and I got the job that way. So yeah, the network that we have, and even the network of your parents, the network of your siblings, the network,
Mm-hmm.
don't just think about your own, family. In fact, my very first job out of college was at A.G. Becker Paribas, which was an investment banking firm. And my brother-in-law's father played golf with one of the managing directors. And he was like, let me introduce you. I'm like, okay. And he introduced me to the gentleman who was the managing director of this company down in Century City. And I went and I interviewed all the other brokers that were there. And I got a job. I mean, it was fantastic. So it was not just my friends, it was just the extended family and friends. So think outside the box. There's so many opportunities out there.
And that can happen for positions that aren't even being advertised. I
Oh yeah.
think I told you last week or so that my daughter's now working with Elia's company,
Yes.
and she got her an interview, and they interviewed her just on face value, not for any particular position. And then based on the interview, they had her interview with other partners within the firm, and they just created a position for her. Just, they find
Nice.
someone who's valuable. They said, we'll find something for you to do. We want you in the company. So,
Nice.
coming on, I wrote this down while you were talking about, asking people in your network and so forth, family and parents and kids and all that, is people are probably already embarrassed. They just got divorced. So, I think it's one more thing you have to put aside is not to be shy or embarrassed to ask your family and friends for referrals. So maybe you haven't worked during the marriage, or maybe you're just working part-time and now you want to, get into a career. Is there some embarrassment you're seeing with people you're coaching, your clients, that that's just one more thing they don't want to have to go out and reach to their friends for?
I don't see that they're embarrassed, which is a good thing, because
Yeah.
I think most people truly want to help others. And if they have a way to do that by introducing them to a friend or somebody that they know, they will absolutely do it. And I would hope that, ego is checked at the door and they just get out of their own way, because that's the situation where they are getting in their own way. They're stumping their own growth. They're stumping the opportunities that are available. And at some point in life, everybody on this planet needs help in some capacity. There isn't a situation, whether it's a job or, a tough emotional issue or whatever it is. And everybody, it's a hand up, not a handout. This is the saying. So yeah, thankfully I haven't had somebody who was like, no, I don't want to ask for help, because yeah, we would definitely want to reframe that, and we would want to kind of change that perception, because that's a story that you're making up in your mind.
Yeah. I bet it kind of runs the, it can go all directions. Now you could have anywhere from people not wanting to reach out. Maybe it's just not something they have a hard time asking for help to what I see the other day, to the other extreme is people asking for help on like the Nextdoor app. So just to, in a general sense, it was the SAG-AFTRA, the actors, the
Yeah,
writers, and all that they're on
yeah,
strike, and there's all of that. Um, all the other services in there, catering and all that are major job losses because there's no movies being made and so forth. Someone was in that scenario and said, "Oh, my husband hasn't been working for 3 months because of this, and they're in this industry. Does anyone have any work for them?" So that's to the other extreme, right? I mean, that is a network in a sense. It is,
yeah,
your peers in a sense. It is, I don't know that that's something I would do. I'd have to be, I suppose, I don't want to use the word desperate, but like really, in dire straits to put myself that much out there, in the public like that to ask
in
for
the
help.
in the public eye. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've actually seen, funny enough, on LinkedIn, I've seen a couple posts, um, and one that's in particular that I'm thinking of is a gal who was in the mortgage industry as a processor, and that of course business has been hurt heavily with interest rates in the market, the real estate market. So she has been out of work for quite a long time,
Really?
and she had said, I've sent, I don't know, 100 and something resumes, and here's my resume. Please think of me. I need help. And, it was not a plead, but it was pretty close. Like, oh my gosh, I am in trouble here. I need some help.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she's getting much help or attention from the LinkedIn piece, but I've seen more of that. And I think it is a place of just, I don't know what else to do. I've exhausted my network. I've exhausted the people that I know, and I don't know what else I can do other than this to get me out of a situation. I mean, I think at the end of the day, if it got that bad for anybody, I mean, there's so many opportunities that you can do. Go to work for a company temporarily, whether it's in a supermarket or whether it's at a Costco or Trader Joe's. Not to diminish that job at all. That's a
Yeah.
fantastic. Those are fantastic jobs, but it's ones that don't require specific skills like being a loan processor, where you need to know the loan experience and you have to have that specific, knowledge. So there's opportunities, I think, everywhere, and you just again need to think outside the box, and you might need to do something that you don't love for a while just to again stop that bleeding and know that it's not forever. It's just a temporary situation.
Yeah. And earlier you had said, get a job to pay the bills, excuse me, start a side hustle, on the side.
Mhm.
Obviously, I mean, say what you will of inflation and everything that's going on. But I mean, you could literally probably get a job in a day. All the fast food restaurants are hurting for employees.
Mhm.
And, with the minimum wage now, what is it? $18.
I think
I've
it's
seen, I think at McDonald's or Jack in the Box, they're looking for full time. They're paying 18 to 20 bucks an hour, which is just, to me, that just seems crazy. I mean, it's not, a livable wage per se if you have a family, but I mean, if you need to get some money in the door, it's
yeah.
something you can certainly do temporarily, like you said.
Yeah, a lot of restaurants are looking for work.
Yeah.
Their servers left. The whole COVID thing, was a complete, chaos for in that industry.
What was
And
that?
in the with COVID,
Mm.
the
Oh yeah.
the restaurants, the servers, all that was gone. So they're having a hard time bringing some of those people back. So whether you're just cleaning tables or a server, a waitress, whatever, um, there's those opportunities as well.
For sure. Patty, we've talked about a lot today. We talked about allowing yourself to grieve, prioritize self-care and self-compassion, reflect and rediscover, set new goals, expand your network. What parting advice do you have for us today? You thought we couldn't go more than 30 minutes today, but we always pull it off.
We always are good at talking, aren't we? You want parting advice? Is that what you said?
Yeah, some parting advice. We've had quite a few people on this podcast, just so you're aware. I've been doing more live shows and even webinars where people are registering for webinars. So I'm getting more people
Nice.
to attending some of our live stuff. So a lot of the questions that came in, it wasn't part of what we were addressing today. A lot of divorce related questions that we weren't necessarily talking about in this podcast, but we will be doing in future. So for those of you that are listening and asking your questions, go to the website, divorce661.com. We have the next webinar you can register for on Tuesday, next Tuesday, the 22nd. We're trying to do it every day. So that's been something that's been interesting, Patty, is these webinars versus just these live streams, is having people register for these webinars where we're doing, self-help tutorials, how to file the paperwork, judgment issues, people with paperwork issues, and so forth. But yeah,
Great.
I just wanted to address that to the people that are, I had quite a few questions come in during this broadcast live stream. But yeah, some parting advice on the topic today.
I would say that you should, if you are in the middle of this divorce or fresh out of a divorce, get some help. Don't do it alone. People want to help you, whether it's friends, family, an expert in whatever field that you need, whether it's maybe a personal trainer or a nutritionist or somebody to help you with your finances, if it's somebody that's just a life coach, if it's a therapist. I mean, when I was going through my divorce, I had my therapist was a huge help for me. So don't try to just grit your way through it. I think it's important that you do get help. It's going to help, accelerate your healing. It's going to help accelerate you getting to the other side. And rather than spend a year, just trying to stay above water, you can absolutely just, swim faster with the help of somebody to, by your side. So reach out for help.
And I think for you, Patty, as a first step, people can schedule a free discovery call with you at pattyhandy.com. And I mean, at a very minimum, just reach out to you and just see and have that initial discussion. And, because people might be thinking, well, how can coaching help me? They can reach out to you. You can have this discovery call and walk them through, and maybe it's a good fit, maybe it's not, but that's, I think, an appropriate, safe, free way of finding out how you can better help them.
Absolutely. It's a great place to start. So it is, exactly, pattyhandy.com. That's Patty with the I, Handy with the Y, and then go to the contact page, and there's my calendar in there, and just book a call on the calendar. And it's a complimentary 30-minute call. And like you said, we just have that conversation, see where things are at with them. It's again, a great place to start.
Patty, as always, great talking to you. We'll talk to you next week. Everyone tune back in every Tuesday for the most part. Or is it Wednesday? I say that every time. Wednesday at 2 p.m. with Patti. And we're talking about different divorce-related, coaching-related items. So make sure to check in with us Wednesday.
And submit questions so we can answer them on these calls. We want to answer your questions.
Yeah, and maybe we could set this up as a webinar as well, where people can register for these and get the notifications. I think that's one of the benefits of it as well, Patti.
Sure, absolutely.
All right. Great talking to you. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good week.
Tim. You too.
Bye-bye.